And I'm going to turn it over actually to my Vice Chair, Dr. Berman, who's going to introduce today's program, which I'm super excited about.
You must be an extrovert.
I wish I had that energy.
You've known me for a while, Dr. Jackson. I won't say how long and in what context, but you know the answer to that.
We'll be chatting about that later.
Well, thank you. And yes, welcome everybody to this is the Clinical Research Subcommittee, but on the Associate Professor Forum. And some of the history of it, just briefly, is that we were tasked with trying to address member issues related to clinical research and training. And in thinking about it, we noted that there seemed to be this sort of unmet need for those after the initial assistant professorship, that there's this forgotten generation of associate professors, and that there wasn't many resources for them. Wanted to know, did they have needs? And so we, back in 2020, put together a forum that was just aimed at gathering information about whether there was some unmet needs for associate professors. And what we learned is that, yes, there are many needs, in fact, and some of them are similar to what assistant professors and professors might also encounter. And then also there were some unique challenges, such as the position that requiring renegotiating with chairs and transitioning into new leadership roles, and mentoring and sponsorship and those types of things came up. So the goals then of these three forums that we put together for 2021 was to dive in more into these needs and really define what kind of ways the AAN could really support associate professors. So this has been kind of a gathering information forum, and we hope that you'll participate in our breakout sessions. And so just to say that this is the third of the forums. The first one was with Dr. Ralph Josephitz, and he talked about mentoring. And then we had a second one with Dr. Janice Miyazaki, who talked about mentoring. And then this third one, she talked about work-life balance. And then today, we are just really thrilled and honored to have Dr. Carlayne Jackson, who is our President Elect at the AAN, to talk to us today about networking. And so these were, the three top areas that people expressed the need to hear about and felt that there were unmet needs in. So just real quickly about Dr. Jackson, she graduated medical school and did most of her training, residency, and fellowship at the University of Texas, San Antonio. And she is well known in the neuromuscular world, been participated in, I think, over 60 multi-center clinical trials in ALS. But she's also been very active, well known in the AAN community, and she's been served as secretary and then also of the secretary of the board planning committee before becoming President-elect. I might have messed up the words there. Anyway, we're just delighted to have her join us here today and hear her presentation on networking. Dr. Jackson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. Go ahead and pull up the first slide. So when we talk about networking, the extroverts like HE get really excited and love to network, and the introverts kind of groan and think, oh, that is the most miserable thing that I can think of. If we got somebody needs to go on.
We have a junior extrovert. The person on the phone, could you please mute yourself because we're getting a lot of background interference? Thank you. Awesome.
So why did the Academy choose the topic of networking and focus on it, particularly for our associate professors? Well, there's actually a science behind networking. There's papers that are written about networking, and studies have shown that it does lead to more opportunities. It improves our capacity to be innovative. It has been shown to improve job satisfaction. But to be honest, one of the biggest issues for us is that it honestly is essential for promotion. So at least at our institution, in order to go up for full professor, we require 5 external letters from people that are at the level above which we're currently at. So if you're associate and you're trying to go for full professor, you have to know 5 people outside the organization to write you a letter. So I don't know if that's consistent with other places, but it really does become an issue. So next slide. In preparing for this, I think it would be interesting to kind of go around and ask people what their definition of networking is before this program and then after the program. But the definition has really changed over the course of my career. And networking is really about building relationships and not just kind of knowing people superficially, but really being able to trust those people. And it involves both a give and take. So networking is not just about trying to get something from other people, but it's an opportunity to teach other people who you are, what your talents are, and what opportunities you would like them to send your way. But it's also about giving to that other person, listening to what they want and need, and having a focus of helping that individual as well accomplish their goals. So next slide. So I would say that not only early in your career, but particularly even at the associate professor level, the way to jumpstart your network is to find a mentor, or probably more than one mentor, to help. And so this is Dr. Rick Barron. I think many of you maybe have seen or heard of him. He was my mentor. He actually joined our faculty when I was a resident, and he's the one that convinced me to stay in academic medicine. But Rick was somebody that even when I was a fellow, he invited me to go to a meeting, an inaugural meeting of the Muscle Study Group, where we were drafting the Constitution to model after the Parkinson's Study Group. And in that meeting were Jerry Mendel and Birch Griggs and Bob Miller and Robbie Taville, all the people who wrote the book that I was studying as I was learning to be a neuromuscular specialist. And so one of the most important things is to identify a mentor who really is willing to invest time in your career, willing to introduce you to people, is committed to your success, but also really is somebody that's going to listen to you without judgment, who's going to call you out if they notice anything counterproductive or any type of negative behavior. And certainly somebody that has resources that you don't have, or who knows people that you don't know, and is willing to share those resources and contacts. So mentorship, I think, is the key to success for networking. And so I'm glad to hear that you guys already had a whole session on mentoring, because I think that's the foundation of what we're going to be talking about today. So next slide. Can we have the next slide? Thank you. So I think you've probably heard this in your mentorship talk, but I want to be sure that everyone understands that just as important as it is to find a mentor with all of those qualities, you as a mentee and as somebody who is trying to establish a network of relationships, there are certain behaviors you must avoid. And certainly one of those behaviors is just kind of vomiting all your issues and expecting your mentor to solve them. If you have an issue, remember that your mentor's time is priceless and you don't want to waste it. So think about an agenda, a specific objective for the interaction with your mentor. Don't ignore boundaries. So your mentor may not be your best friend. You don't want to be calling them at 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night or early in the morning. You want to be sure that you maintain a very professional relationship. And don't be defensive if they call out behaviors that you need to change. If you are defensive, they're unlikely to provide any meaningful or candid feedback moving forward. So next slide. So mentorship, certainly number one priority in terms of beginning your networking. The second priority is to get involved, to join organizations, work groups, attend meetings consistently, and get to know a core group of people. So this is a picture from the Muscle Study Group. After we developed our Constitution, we grew, and we met in Java, New York every year, which is a little town in the middle of nowhere. And not only did we discuss hard science and develop protocols and give people feedback, but at the end of the day, we sat around a campfire and we made s'mores and we drank whiskey, and some of the guys smoked cigars. I never got into the cigar thing, but it was just an opportunity to meet and know people on a very personal level. So regardless of your subspecialty, getting involved in probably smaller groups where you can really get to know people well and get connected is really critical. Next slide. So I thought I would just include some do's and don'ts about developing a network. And I'll go through these fairly quickly, but I'd like you to take some notes as I go through these. And after my presentation, we're going to have a time to get into breakout groups. And it would be nice to kind of talk about your perception of these issues and what you have found to be important or not important. So in terms of the do's, when you go to any event, meeting, you need to come with a goal. You know, who do you want to meet? What is your purpose? What is the thing that you're challenged by that you need help with? Secondly, you need to socialize. After the meeting, don't go back to your room and order room service and watch a movie. This is the time that you need to be committed to making dinner reservations with your friends, hanging out at the bar, even if you don't drink alcohol, just to kind of meet and talk and discuss in an informal environment. You need to be confident. You need to listen. Remember, networking is a two-way street. So it's better to just sit and ask questions and find out what that individual values and needs and wants, and then think about giving to them first before you expect anything in receipt. You need to gain trust. Everything that you talk about should be confidential, and learn to trust. And one of the most important things I think I have found that works is really being intentional about connecting other people. So once you know what they need and value and want, then think about, well, who do I know that could help them with that, and introduce them, or make, plans to send them an email or a text later after the event is over. You want to always focus on mutual benefits. What am I interested in doing? Is it, whether it be a scientific problem or an administrative issue, and really kind of connect with people that are dealing or struggling with similar things. If you're in a social situation, keep moving is what I always tell people. If you stay in one place or stay with the same group of people, you're never really going to be able to effectively meet new people. Always thank people, regardless of how much or little they provide. And as I've gotten older, I have found that it's really helpful on my smartphone at the end of an event or meeting to make contacts and then type in little notes. What did I learn about this person? What's important to this individual? What do I need to follow up on? So that when I see them again at the meeting a year from then, I remember where we left off and I can jump back in. So always follow up. It's really important to, if you say you're going to contact them, to do so, and really make an attempt to enjoy the networking process. So HE was talking about, I've spent a lot of time with HE at comedy clubs and bars and eating ice cream and doing fun things. And I think networking eventually will become fun, even if you're an introvert. So next slide. So those are the do's. In terms of the don'ts, don't wait for a crisis, and don't wait till it's time for your promotion to professor to start to network. You need to be proactive and really engage in networking throughout your career. Try not to be negative. People don't like to hang out with negative people. Networking is all about problem solving and connecting. And so most people don't want to connect or interact with negative people. So even if you're having some struggles, try to spin it in a positive way, at least at the beginning. Don't be afraid to ask hard questions and be transparent. Think about the people that you're closest to. Most of those people know your good side and your bad side. And if you're always projecting your good side, you may not get as far in terms of developing those relationships. One of the things that I'm guilty of is staying with my comfort person. So I might show up to a meeting and I have a really close friend and I feel comfortable with that person, and I just choose to stay with that person rather than going out and meeting new people. So always be intentional about trying to kind of break out of your peer group and to extend yourself. Don't monopolize the conversation. Networking should be like a tennis match. You want to toss the ball back and forth. It shouldn't stay in one court too long. I've heard people say that if your mouth is open, you're not learning. So be sure to really spend an equal amount of time in terms of sharing. And I think the final don't is don't overcommit yourself. Don't try to go to 10 different meetings. Choose 2 or 3 organizations that you're really committed to. Try to attend those meetings on a regular basis. I think that will go a much longer way than trying to spread yourself too thin. Next slide. So I asked Orly Averser, who's our current president, I said, I've got to give this talk on networking and I can't find anything in the, to really help me prepare. And so she sent me this article from the Harvard Business Review. And I think it really kind of supports the do's and don'ts that we've just gone through. But it was an article on loving networking and how most people don't love networking and how do we flip our perspective to look forward to opportunities to meet new people. And there are 4 kind of tenets in the article. One is to focus on learning and to see networking really as an opportunity for discovery rather than some type of chore. The other point was to really, in your interactions with people, your goal should be to identify common interests that require you to be interdependent. And that will drive a lot of innovation and projects that you're interested in working together on. You need to think always about what you can give rather than what you can get. I think people have it flipped when they go into a networking situation that you're supposed to think about, okay, I've got to pass out cards and I've got to figure out how to get things from these people. It really should be the other way around. And finally, think about networking in terms of this is an opportunity for a higher purpose. It's a tool to eventually accomplish your goal.